We are apparently live now, and Foamfoot 420 and Omegatron 66. Thank you, sir. Can't believe you're in here this early. Steve DeRocco, you have made it to the midpoint of the week. It is Wednesday. It is November 17th. Welcome into the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Lots and lots to get to this morning, including the new college football playoff rankings that have dropped. We shall discuss. We shall debate. We shall see whether or not we put our blessings upon them. Last night in the NBA, San Antonio Spurs fall in LA to the Clippers. And Shannon, once again, Spurs fight hard. Spurs look good deep into the third quarter. We were tied at 69-69 with 4:22 to play. In fact, the Spurs took a lead in the third. And then Clippers go on an 18-4 run to close out the third quarter. It was double digits most of the fourth quarter. At one point late, Spurs cut it to single digits, and the Spurs fall 106-92 last night.
Are you kind of chalking up the I don't want to call it a collapse, but they play well, and then it gets to the fourth quarter, and is that to youth, the inability to finish a certain way to keep things going? Is that veteran status helps other teams out in that regard?
I think so. I think closing in the NBA is an art. It's a learned skill. Among other things, you try to get fouled. You do little things like that, especially if you're trying to come from behind to get those points when you stop the clock by being fouled. It was interesting, and a big statistic last night, Shannon. The Spurs went to the line 7 times, 48-minute NBA game. So that means a couple of those were 2 free throws. They were 5 of 7 at the line. So they didn't even go 7 times. They had 7 free throws. And in the postgame last night, our good friend Bill Schoening, who, by the way, he's going to join us tomorrow. Normally, Bill joins us on Wednesdays at 8:05 a.m., and we're going to let him sleep in because it was a late-night West Coast Spurs game, and not everybody can guzzle coffee like I do. But Bill was talking with Mitch Johnson, the Spurs assistant coach, and he brought up the fact, hey, only 7 free throws for the Spurs all night. What's up with that? And as Mitch Johnson said, he said that's part of being a young team. These guys in the NBA, they don't have reputations for getting fouls. Nobody gets fouled more than James Harden. He knows how to get fouled. Plus, there's that. I've never liked this about the NBA, Shannon, the weird thing where if you're either a rookie or a young player, the refs don't respect you and they don't give you fouls. Yeah, first of all,
stop whining.
Yeah. And they call fouls on you more readily, which I think is crap. Either you call it consistently, whether or not somebody's a superstar or has been in the league 7 years, or you don't. And to me, that's one of those weird subjective things about the NBA that I don't like at all.
Yeah, and I've got the stats here now, and you're right. 5 of 7 from free throws to the Clippers 20 of 22 free throws.
Wow.
That's quite a difference, pretty much the difference in the game. Obviously, yes. The Clippers shot a little bit better from 3-point range. We haven't really talked about this, but, they have the rule change now that has put guys at the line less than we've seen prior, especially guys like James Harden and Steph Curry, who were really great at moving within the air with the ball to try and get that contact rather than just shoot the ball. And so they're calling that less when they see that that's an intentional move. I feel like in some way, if the Spurs start driving the ball, getting to the basket and getting to the free throw line the old-fashioned way, that could maybe help them more than this rule that's now kind of hindering guys who used to get away with that kind of stuff all the time.
Well, and as you just illustrated, Shannon, they hit 20 free throws yesterday. The Clippers, Spurs hit 5. That's 15, and they lose by 14. And you're right, and 3-point disparity. And it's so weird today in the NBA. You can almost look at almost any game, and the team that is hitting more 3-point shots tends to win that game. Yeah. It's like a really good barometer.
Well, and on top of that, not even just them making less, but Clippers shot 38 3-pointers to the Spurs 22.
Yeah, you just gotta, and especially it would seem to me, the emphasis for the Spurs team, they're young, they're fast, they've got a lot of energy. And we heard before the game last night, the Clippers have a lot of players out. Of course, Kawhi Leonard, my buddy, out of the lineup with injury. Serge Ibaka. This is a weird one. Serge Ibaka, longtime veteran, voluntarily chose and volunteered to go to the G League. He's playing for the Clippers G League team to come off of injury and rehabilitate his game. Tyronn Lue, the coach of the Clippers, said in pregame he's never seen a veteran in the NBA raise his hand to go, "Hey, man, I'd like to go to the G League and work on my game," which he has done. But the point is, the Clippers, we knew before the game, had an 8-man rotation. So they're 5 starters and 3 dudes coming off the bench. So you would think if you're the Spurs with all those young legs, you could run up and down the court. And while you're doing that, oh, by the way, jack up 3-point shots. Right.
Especially when it comes down to closing, like we talked about in that fourth quarter, when you do have those young legs. That's really interesting. Yeah. And then I don't know, when I was there at the Mavericks Spurs game.
Oh my God, you called it. It was at the AT&T Center, and you called it the Mavericks game.
I just
how dare you
know how to poke the bear. Like the Spurs were perfect from 3 from their first 3, and then they started missing, and they kind of stopped shooting the 3 ball. Is that part of it too? Did they get in a slump and then they just turn away from it? I mean, I don't know what the fix is for that, but it's like when teams get hot, right? I mean, when they get hot, the net just widens.
Yes.
And I don't want to say that it closes, but I mean, again, in this league and the way the game is played now, you can't stop shooting the 3 just because it's not necessarily falling.
Yeah, and I think, in everything I've heard from the NBA and listening to Bill Schoening interview coaches all of these years, that if you're in a slump, you've got to shoot your way out of the slump. You've just got to keep shooting. You're an NBA player. You're here for a reason. You're the elite of the elite on the face of this earth in basketball. So you've got to shoot your way out of it. But one of the problems with this Spurs team, they go cold and they go into these slumps. And I mentioned at the end of the third quarter, after it was tight and it was even with less than 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, Clippers go on an 18-4 run. In fact, in the final 5:30 of the third quarter, the Spurs scored 2 points. That's almost half. 6 minutes is half of a quarter. In essentially half a quarter, the Spurs got 2 points. You can't go ice cold like that. Yeah. And again, I don't know, other than keep on shooting and keep on getting more experience. I don't know how you fix that.
I mean, maybe you pull a Serge Ibaka and go to. I mean, get your confidence up. I mean, Serge is an NBA champion and Olympian, but go get some confidence up and bring that back with you to the big leagues.
And that's how the Spurs, Devin Vassell is playing really well off the bench. He was a rookie last year. I think the Spurs use the G League and the Austin Spurs better than any other team in the NBA. Typically, a rookie spends a lot of time there. I know Josh Primo, the Austin Spurs played Mexico City in Austin over the weekend, and Josh Primo, the rookie, the 18-year-old, and it blows my mind that he's 18 years old, had 14 points, had a really good game. So, but you talk about shooting threes, and by the way, we're about a minute away from the grand in your hand cash contest. We'll tell you about that. But last night, Golden State goes into Brooklyn and beats them 117-99 at Brooklyn. Golden State is now 12-2. They're red hot. They're the best team in the NBA right now, and they're without Klay Thompson and without Weissman, the rookie overall lottery pick they got a couple of years ago. But Steph Curry gets 37, and talking about you got to shoot the threes if you can shoot them, Shannon. Steph Curry took 14 3-point shots last night, and he made 9. He was 9 out of 14 from 3. If you got a 3-point shooter, that dude needs to jack up threes. And Bryn Forbes of the Spurs was brought back from Milwaukee because he hit 44% from 3-point distance last year at Milwaukee. I don't know why Bryn Forbes isn't out there jacking up threes all the time.
We should ask him.
Good point. We will effort to do that.
Let us coach him up.
Bryn Forbes has been in the studio. I got a selfie with Bryn Forbes in this.
So do you have to duck to come in the doorway?
Kind of. He's a friend of the show. In fact, we got right behind me is a Bryn Forbes.
There you go. He's a little covered up.
In Pop We Trust, and he's even wearing a mask. He's a socially conscious Bryn Forbes. All right, it is 6:20. This is the first time we're doing it today, and we're going to do it on the 20s all day, as we always do during weekdays, until 9:20. On the 20s, it's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. Somebody is winning $1,000 right now and every hour today. It could be you. Listen closely.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword money to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's money to 200-200.
Money, it's not only what you can win, it's also an excellent Pink Floyd tune. I'm just saying. Shannon, thanks to the boss man, Brian Gann, who is in here doing the heavy lifting this morning, as he often does. He's actually doing heavy lifting across multiple iHeart radio stations and news divisions this morning. I do want to say hello to our friends on the live video feed. I see a lot of people in there already. If you're new to the show, it's a lot of fun. We stream live video across a number of platforms, including Facebook Live, AM 1300 The Zone, and Ticket 760's Facebook Live pages, across their Twitter pages as well. Ticket 760 has a YouTube page. I see Taro Kotani, the greatest international Spurs fan, joining us this morning, or where he is this evening, from Tokyo, Japan. In fact, I saw also somebody else jumped in here this morning. Yeah, Christopher Smith is in Kenya. It is 3 p.m. in Kenya. We are live in Kenya this morning. Shannon, is that crazy?
I mean, I thought Pitbull was Mr. Worldwide, but I think we may be close seconds.
That is
Mr. and Mrs. Worldwide.
Yeah, and Shannon, I am so old. I did radio before we were streaming on the internet. Get off my lawn. So, I mean, I would be working WOAI with Charlie Parker, and someone would be listening to us in Buda, and we'd get excited. Whoa, man, Buda! Woo! That's cool. You know, now we got Kenya and Tokyo this morning.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. So welcome in everybody on Facebook Live. We will see how you are doing and see what is on your mind as we go through the morning, and certainly during the breaks. We talk to you during the breaks as well. All right, Shannon, one of the things we're going to get into this morning, the college football playoff rankings dropped again last night. No changes in the top 7. Top 7 are same as they ever were. Georgia number 1, Alabama number 2, because it's the law that Alabama is in the top 4. Oregon number 3, Ohio State number 4. Now, interestingly, Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State have one loss. They're all 9-1, as are number 6 Michigan and number 7 Michigan State. Now, we will get Ohio State taking on Michigan State this weekend. That'll be a big one. Somebody will be eliminated and get 2 losses, and one of those 2 teams is really going to make its case for, you know, beating a really, really good team late in the season. And again, the Cincinnati Bearcats, as my wife Beth Settle is joining us on the live Facebook feed. She is a Cincinnati Bearcat graduate, 10-0. And again, not yet, same as last year, same as it ever was, not invited to the dance.
Oh, is that what it really is going to take, is the move to the Big 12 to put some respect on their name?
It might.
I mean, because, before I left for the Spurs game, or maybe it was Thursday night, they played South Florida last week in an early game, and South Florida got to an early lead. Obviously, Cincinnati ended up having their way with them later on. But I texted you immediately and was like, if Cincinnati loses to anybody, really, given their schedule, if they lose, they are going to ruin it for the likes of a UTSA and insert other programs that aren't part of the Power Five, because that one loss against them will weigh more heavily than a loss that an Alabama and Oregon or a Michigan State, Michigan, whatever, has suffered, given, now that they've been using against them their schedule on one side as to why they're not in the top four. They will then use it again to drop them dramatically in the rankings should they suffer a loss. It's not fair, but it's where we are. And I want to take us to our poll question now, because we are asking you about the college football playoff, asking which team on the outside looking in most deserves to be in the Final Four. We've got number 5, Cincinnati, number 6, Michigan, number 7, Michigan State. And then you tell us if there's someone else lingering out there that you think should be up in the top 4 there. Cincinnati running away with it right now with 92% of the vote. I can't say I'm too surprised about that, given their 10-0 status. There are some people voting other, but they forgot the "you tell us" part. So
yeah, tell us.
We're waiting on that, because I'm interested to know.
And as we go to break, I would say, as you look at what's ahead of us, as I mentioned, Ohio State plays Michigan State this weekend. So one of those teams out, one of them going to be strengthened. And then Alabama, even though they're at number 2 playing Georgia, if Cincinnati runs the table and they're at number 5 right now, and Alabama gets a loss to Georgia in the SEC championship game, as they are expected to, how do you keep 2-loss Alabama in the Final Four, and at number 5, how do you keep Cincinnati undefeated out of the Final Four? So there are some people who believe if Cincinnati just takes care of business, an opening will occur to get them in the playoff. A lot of analysts, I'm hearing them say that right now.
I would hope so, because it would feel wrong otherwise.
Yeah, and you make a great point for the future, and even this year for the rankings, but for the future of teams like UTSA, Cincinnati represents all of those non-Power 5 conference football programs that want to have hope of going to the college football playoff in the future. Lots coming up all morning long. The high five play of the day is next. As we mentioned, your chance to win $1,000 on the 20s throughout this show and all day long right here. Shannon's Salty Shakedown coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. Sports history, sports birthdays. And we believe Taylor Estes is going to join us this morning. She kind of big-timed us yesterday. It happens. She didn't really big-time us, but we love talking Longhorn football with Taylor. She is scheduled in the 8 o'clock hour. Your phone calls along the way. And, Coach K's grandson at Duke, not making Coach K look so good on his farewell tour. We'll get into that as well. Brian Gann, the boss man, makes the show go. She's the salty one. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Beth Settle, good morning. Ralph Balderas, Sam Tobias, Barney Segura, Jason Paniagua with a good morning to Foamfoot 420, a.k.a. Amber. Steve Duraco, the original rock. I did see, that's going to be in the Salty Shakedown. Can you believe that name? I've heard it, but I can't tell you what it is. I forgot what it was. Yeah. Yes. No, see, I don't specifically remember that. That's great. And I still, and maybe because I'm old, I still don't trust it. I still feel like, if I put money in it, and what happens when it all crashes? It's like some of those .com startups, when the .com boom was happening and people put a lot of money into certain startups and then they went to zero fast. It still scares me. Yeah. 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 If I had a lot of discretionary income to gamble, yeah, I'd do it, but I don't. Yes. Hey, Christopher Smith, so cool you're in here from Kenya, man. Steve Duraco, Tracy Bogert, welcome in. Luisa Alanis, Lucinda Sullivan with the coffee emoji. I'm going to go get some coffee myself. O.M. Garcia, Hector Gomez. Barney Segura, I think I said hi. If I see your name, of course I say your name. Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. Playoffs? I just want to win a game. All right. Fitbit says I slept 2 hours and 52 minutes last night after that late night Spurs game. Wow. Where did you find that information? Okay. Okay, I'll take a look. Yeah, because I had no idea. Wow. Yeah, so that'll be in the Salty Shakedown. Then I'll that's excellent information to add. All right. Thank you very much. See if my coffee is warm enough without the microwave. See, when I'm this tired, I can't even speak correctly. Sometimes the journey from the brain to the mouth does not execute itself perfectly. Coffee is hot enough. Thank God. 15 people in here. Good morning, 15 people. If I see you, I say hello. And I want more and more. Look at this. There's Christopher Smith watching from Kenya on the screen. That is, I think that's the first time. And Christopher's been in here before, but Chris, I don't know if you were in Kenya when you were in here before. That's pretty amazing. All right, Tracy Bogert, what do you have for us here? This link gives you the rundown of the times and awards will be on which TV awards bios of the finalists. Oh, okay. Let me go. I can't specifically click on that link that Tracy gives us there. There's Luisa Alanis. Luisa, good morning. Well, and see, those of you on Facebook Live, like there's Omegatron 66. So the Facebook people don't see the comments of the YouTube people. So Omegatron 66 on YouTube. Foamfoot 420, who never sleeps, a.k.a. Amber, is also a YouTube person. As Christopher Smith said at the top of the hour, it's 3 p.m. in Kenya. So it's 3:33 right now in Kenya. And John Williams checking in here from Dallas. Oh, Christopher Smith saying, been here for 2 weeks. That has got to be an exotic location, man. Wow, Nairobi, Kenya. Christopher Smith is in Nairobi. We head to Mombasa tomorrow. Now I know Nairobi is in Kenya. I'm assuming Mombasa is in Kenya. That is crazy, man. And again, because I'm old enough to remember radio pre-internet, and Steve Duraco, who is in here, one night I was doing hurricane coverage in the middle of the night on WOAI. I stayed the whole night. Judd Ashmore was down at the Gulf Coast in the hurricane. and Steve Duraco's sister, Andrea, and this was pre-internet. I mean, the internet existed, but there wasn't streaming. You didn't have radio on the internet, stuff like that. So WOAI, its signal is 50,000 watts. At night, it bounces into 38 states across the United States. And Steve Duraco's sister, Andrea, was in Iowa, just driving, from town to town at night for some reason on a trip, I guess, with her husband. And they were tuning the radio, and all of a sudden they heard my name. And, I grew up in the neighborhood with Steve, so his big sister knew me, and they were like, no way, that can't be the Chris Duel we know. And have somebody in Iowa, I found out about it from Steve, to have somebody in Iowa listening to us on the radio from San Antonio was just, oh my God, Iowa. And now Nairobi, Kenya, on the way to Mombasa on the Indian Ocean. Unbelievable, Christopher Smith. That is wild, man. Thanks for being in here. We can now officially report that Omegatron 66 is at work. There's your update on Omegatron 66. Have a good day at work, Omegatron 66. That is just so crazy. And of course, Taro Kotani, the greatest international Spurs fan ever. If any of you are new here, Taro lives in Tokyo. He is a huge Spurs fan. And he has traveled 16 times from Tokyo to San Antonio to see the Spurs. He's gone on the road, seen the Spurs in New Orleans and other places. And I saw, Taro, you wrote overnight a really cool thing about DeMar DeRozan, wishing him luck, that you're excited. He's playing so well with the Chicago Bulls. That's a very cool way of taking the high road. And I try to do that as well. And I'm happy for DeMar DeRozan. If you got to leave on good terms. Unlike Kawhi. Oh, do you? Yeah. But yeah, Ralph, see, I'm putting those up there right now. Ralph says we see the message pop-ups on the bottom left corner of your video from YouTube. Oh, okay. I think those are because I'm putting them up. I could be wrong, Ralph. I don't know. I'm just lately starting to, and it takes me a while. I'm slow. I'm just a frozen caveman lawyer. Your ways confuse me. I'm just starting to add more of the elements here that we can add. I'm going to start also during breaks. We can play other videos. I haven't done that yet. I hope to do that soon. So thank you, Ralph. Little purple haze.
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
Welcome back in. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And Shannon, as I mentioned, as we often do on the live video feed, which if you're new to the show, you can jump on it, Facebook Live, AM 1300 The Zone, or Ticket 760, or the Twitter pages of those radio stations, or YouTube, Ticket 760 on YouTube. We heard earlier that, and we're joined from Tokyo this morning by Taro Kotani, the greatest international Spurs fan. But Christopher Smith told us earlier this morning, it's 3:38 in the afternoon right now in Kenya, and that's where he's watching the show now on Facebook Live from Kenya. And I asked him, where are you in Kenya? He is in Nairobi, Kenya. And tomorrow he heads to Mombasa, which is on the Indian Ocean. He's been in Kenya for 2 weeks. And I was telling the story, Shannon, just now on Facebook Live, like 20 years ago, maybe 17, before the internet was where it is today, I was over at WOAI and there was a hurricane in the Gulf. So they had we did overnight hurricane coverage. And a longtime meteorologist, Judd Ashmore, was down at Rockport checking out the hurricane as it came onto the coast. And a friend of mine, Steve Duraco, who was in here this morning, his sister, again, it was pre-internet, and it's WOAI. It's 50,000 watts. It was nighttime. It was 3 a.m. His sister was driving in a car in Iowa and heard my name. She grew up in the neighborhood with me. She goes, "Is that Chris Duel from the kid I grew up with in San Antonio?" And I was going, and then I found it's like, oh my God, somebody is listening to our broadcast in San Antonio. Somebody in Iowa hears our broadcast in San Antonio. And Shannon, here you and I today are not only being listened to, but watched from Nairobi, Kenya, and Christopher Smith.
That's incredible. I mean, the power of technology. And also now that I'm like thinking about it, Christopher and Taro, I mean, the ability for us to do radio from wherever, back in February, I was doing it from my house because through a computer because couldn't go anywhere. Which leads me to my point of you and I should pick places we'd like to travel to and like somehow create packages to like the NFL in London. Let's just go to London for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And do all of the reporting from there and all of the, some pub reporting as well. Cause you're in London.
Yeah.
Make that happen, right?
You can
do radio from anywhere.
Our crack sales staff on crack, JC Carpenter, can get right on that.
I'm sure they've already got the package put together.
We could get a sponsorship from Expedia or some kind of online booking site. And it's Shannon and Chris from London, courtesy of Expedia. I like it. Very, very cool. All right. Coming up, there's so much to talk about. More on the college football playoff. I got to get into, and we saw it break yesterday, but I want to get more into it. Duke and Coach K on his farewell swan song, his grandson getting into some trouble with the law. We will get into that. I had some upsets last night in NCAA basketball, one of which was kind of jaw-dropping and pretty significant. We'll get into that as well. But right now, we do this every morning at this time. It is the high five play of the day because we like passing out high fives. And you should as well. Whenever you can give somebody a high five and say, hey, job well done, do it. It makes them feel better and reinforces that they're doing great. And it makes you feel good to give out a high five. The high five play of the day is appropriately sponsored by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. They got everything that you love at a High Five. Big screen TVs. You can watch all the sports you love. Great food, great drinks, lots of food specials and drink specials, great games. You can go bowling, you can play laser tag, axe throwing, and so much more. Shannon is frequently cited at High Five locations in Austin. And Shannon, who is deserving of a high five this morning?
We are heading to a place you know very well, Chris, California, specifically to the California School for the Deaf. Riverside, their football team, varsity football program, is steamrolling this year. They've had previously 7 straight losing seasons, and this year they are so far undefeated, and they're currently the highest ranked team in their South Cali division. Friday night, for instance, they played their second round of the playoffs, and they beat that team 84-12.
Oh my God.
So they're not just winning and winning big. I mean, they are truly, I said it, steamrolling. They are putting in the work, and rightfully so, because unfortunately, not only through the 7 straight seasons that they suffered losing seasons, but because of their circumstances, they've been trolled, they've been poked fun at. Even coaches of other teams have mocked them from volleyball, all their other athletics there for that school. So for this football team to be having the season that they're having, they've silenced a lot of the critics. And so not only are they getting the wins, but I think they're finally getting the human respect and decency that they deserve. We always say winning changes everything. And here, for them to be able to kind of do this for their school in this way, I mean, they probably didn't expect that turnaround, but for people to take notice and finally pay them, as I said, the human respect that they deserve, not just for their football program. It's fantastic. So a high five to them and good luck with the rest of your season.
Yeah. And I'm seeing you talk about the respect and the notoriety that the California School for the Deaf out of Riverside, California is getting for this. And the link that you sent out, Shannon, from the New York Times. So I mean, even the New York Times covering them. And I mean, think about this. These are high school kids. think about your high school experience. We all had insecurities in high school. It's like, oh, do people like me? Do I have pimples? Are people going to think less of me?
We're still like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. For these kids to go through life and adolescence, with this physical challenge, being deaf, it's got to be tough. And then to hear, and this is what drives me crazy about this culture, that they have been picked on and mocked on social media, by other kids. And then, as you mentioned, by coaches of other schools, those coaches should never work with kids again in their lives. Yeah. So God love them, and triumph, undefeated, 84-12, just putting the beat down on people. It is a lovely, wonderful story. I'm so happy for them.
Yes, and they are cool. 2 wins away from capturing their division championship. It would be the high school's first time in the high school's 68-year history.
Wow.
To win a championship. So fantastic season so far. And like I said, good luck. 2 more.
We got to keep an eye on them to see if they do it, to see if they win the championship.
Absolutely.
I love it. Very, very cool. As I mentioned, Shannon, the New York Times covering this story, the California School for the Deaf. Yesterday, I'm listening to the Mike Taylor show in the afternoon right here, 4 to 7. And just after 6 o'clock, Mike Taylor had our friend, his friend, your friend, Jeff Traylor, UTSA head football coach, Jeff Traylor, and trailing Jeff Traylor all day yesterday at practice, a reporter from the Washington Post. I mean, we keep hearing this. It's the Jim Rome show. It's national. It's Sirius XM. It's Rich Eisen interviewing Sincere McCormick. Yesterday, the Washington Post at UTSA practice trailing Jeff. It's such a huge deal going on right now at UTSA.
He's blowing up so quickly. And I feel like you, me, him, we're friends. We got a good rapport going, right? We poke jabs at him. He takes jabs right back. It's great.
Yeah.
But as he becomes big time with like the likes of this happening, I'm going to take it personally. If our relationship changes, I'm going to take it very personally.
Exactly.
So if he's listening, don't forget folks like us.
Well, and you got to wonder, and he even admitted it. It was a great question by Mike Taylor yesterday to Jeff Traylor. He said, with all of these wins now being undefeated, is there more pressure on you? And what I love about Jeff Traylor, he didn't duck it. He didn't give coach speak. Oh, we're taking it one game at a time. Every game is like the other game. He said, yeah. He said, yes. I mean, he's a human being, but he's not just a human being. He's an extraordinary human being, clearly. I mean, listen to him when we interview him, when Mike Taylor interviews him. He's a man of integrity, discipline, character, common sense, practicality. But the more I think about this, Shannon, like this weekend, it's UAB. They've got a great record. They're 7-3 overall. They're 5-1 in Conference USA. UTSA is 6-1 in Conference USA. If UTSA loses, there's so much on the line. If they lose, they essentially are out of the Conference USA championship game. All of this notoriety gone. You talked about Cincinnati. Cincinnati carries the hopes of non-Power 5 football programs to get to a college football playoff. Well, to a certain extent, UTSA does as well. And as Jeff Traylor said to Mike yesterday, every one of these interviews, like the Washington Post and all of this coverage, it's more attention for the university. Mm-hmm. So people who might live in Iowa are going to hear about UTSA and go, wow, what's up with, let me Google that school. Wow, they've got a great science department. Maybe I'll go there and study physics or whatever. Or maybe I'll go play football at UTSA. So with every win, that is another week and a growing week of national, if not global, media coverage for UTSA. So if you're Jeff Traylor, clearly, in addition to just wanting to win the football game and continue to be undefeated, you're trying to win to get another week of growing, incredible media coverage for your university and your football program. And obviously, that's going to impact recruiting down the line.
Yeah, Coach Traylor definitely understands the assignment, and that assignment isn't about him, right? Especially he gets that contract. It's huge news. It's a great contract financially. It keeps him there. He could easily walk around my way or the highway. I don't have to go out and give food to student sections. I don't even have to talk about the student section. That's not my job. I'm just here to coach football, blah, yada, yada. But he's doing everything, and he seems to truly enjoy it too, which makes it all that much greater. And when we had him on, we were talking about the UTSA program being called USTA because people are just now, hopefully, with all this news and stuff, that'll start to change. But that he had fun with that, and that was actually his idea to have someone create those photos to kind of and that just created more attention towards the school and in a positive and fun way. And it's like, it's hard. I don't know anyone who wouldn't like Jeff Traylor. I mean, maybe the kids on the other teams for like those 3 hours.
Yeah.
But he's doing everything right now, and I'm sure it'll stay that way.
You're a big fan of Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a Ted Lasso thing. You just said, and I agree with you. Who could possibly not like Jeff Traylor? I mean, well, and you, as you said a second ago, he's clearly loves what he's doing. And, I'm a big fan of the late mythologist Joseph Campbell, and his most famous line is follow your bliss. Mm-hmm. Whatever you do in life, find what it is you love. Find what it is you have a passion for. And if you do that, your doors will open for you that might not have opened for anyone else because you're following your passion. To me, Jeff Traylor, I mean, think of all those years as head football coach at Gilmer High School, and he just got better and better, and he loved it, and he'd established relationships with other coaches, and he kept winning, and he won championships. The next thing you know, he's an assistant coach at Texas and other big-time college programs. And now, boom, first time out, head football coach, Division I college football program, and he is one of 3 undefeated teams in America right now. It's incredible.
Yeah, that love, that passion. I mean, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, clearly great coaches, but you look at sometimes they're like, do you even want to be here? I mean, you will look like you will be anywhere else in the world right now. You certainly act like it at times. So it's very refreshing. And I'm so grateful we get to talk to him each week. I've already got questions for next Monday.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. And one more thing that I heard him say yesterday in the conversation with Mike Taylor. And it's a life lesson for all of us and for adults who might deal with young people. But, he was talking about how the team holds itself accountable, and he's got his single digit players. If you've got a single digit, especially a 2, a 1, or a 0, the 2-1-0 triangle of toughness, you're a leader on that team, and you earn those numbers. And he was talking about, if for these 18 to 22 year olds, he said, if you behave like an adult, I will treat you like an adult. He said, if you behave like a man, I'm going to treat you like a man. He said, if you behave like a child, I'm going to treat you like a child. And the subject was smartphones. All of the players are allowed to bring their smartphones into meetings in case there's an emergency or something. But he said, when we're in the meeting, you put your phone on silent, just like Shannon, you and I, if we were in a high level meeting at iHeartRadio, we can have our cell phone in the meeting, but we're adults. We turn our cell phones on silent. Little things like that. The way he treats these players, I think even that pays dividends. He's asking them to be adults and be leaders. And by doing that, they are growing into their roles. And you don't get to 10-0 without having leaders on that football team.
And what you're talking about, I'm sitting here just being like, why can't Texas have these kinds of guys?
Yeah.
That is a huge piece that's missing on this Texas football team right now.
And it sounds crazy, but maybe in the offseason, I'm not only Texas, a lot of programs maybe want to take a look at how Jeff Traylor does what he does in some of the, what he has in place, the things he does at UTSA to make them as successful as they are with what he's got. All right, coming up, so much going on in the world of sports. We will dive into the NFL, college football, of course, and we will talk about what's going on at Duke, an ugly situation involving the grandson of Coach K on the farewell season and farewell tour for Coach K at Duke. The salty shakedown coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. Another chance at 7:20 for you to win $1,000. Sports history, sports birthdays. Brian Gann makes the show go. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Thanks for hanging out with us till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Mike Fisher, what is up? I'm going to bring this up. Ralph Balderas, and Ralph, I'd like to find it. Ralph says, I think ESPN did a documentary on that sports school for being a deaf-mute school. It was pretty neat. Being an only child of a deaf-mute mother is a blessing. How my mother raised me. Wow, Ralph. How amazing is that? You've got firsthand knowledge. That is so amazing. And yet, and as you know from your mom, when you lose one of your senses, you know, in this case, hearing, but I hear this about deaf people and blind people, your other senses become more keenly aware. And I'm sure you probably experienced that with your mom. So, I mean, human beings are so resilient. It's amazing. Okay, I am this time going to heat up my coffee. I had some dreams. They were clouds in my coffee. Clouds in my coffee. That, of course, is Carly Simon, the song You're So Vain, which was written, the legend has it, about Warren Beatty, who flew his Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun. Little known fact about Carly Simon, she did not hated performing in concert because she was incredibly shy. She would have been a more of a phenom performer if she wasn't so darn shy. But an incredible singer-songwriter. And I wish you never, I'm going to put him in front of the black screen so you can see Mike Taylor better. I try to get rid of that glare. Maybe if I sit him up. Oh, that's a little better. Okay. I'm going to nuke my coffee. I will be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Thank you, Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor, kind enough to fill in. Woo! 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 All right, I got hot coffee. I'm doing much better. Sam Tobias reminding us UTSA has moved up to number 22 in the college football playoff rankings. And I was wrong on that. If I was Colin Cowherd, we could do where Colin was wrong. You know, they went down in the other rankings because of that game against Southern Mississippi was closer than people expected, a 30-something point spread, 33, I think. So, I thought they would not move up in the college football playoff rankings, but they did. Good for them. College football playoff rankings get something right. Gylan Jackson. Gylan, you sent me a very nice text the other night. I've had a crazy week. Last night, late night Spurs game. But you sent me a very nice text, and I meant to write you. You're on my list of about 15 people I got to get back with. But just to prove to you, here's my sleep from last night according to Fitbit. Oh, you can't. Yeah, there it is. Last night, according to Fitbit, I slept 2 hours and 52 minutes. But I did get a sleep score of 67, whatever the heck that means. So anyway, good to see you, Gylan. Gylan, for people who may not know, Gylan's a great, and Gylan, you've got your own podcast studio. I've been following you on social media. Gylan's hosted this show. When I've gone on vacation, Gylan has been here in studio hosting this show. He's done Spurs React with us in studio. Great guy, great broadcast talent. Good to see you, man. It's been a while. And again, I'm so embarrassed that it takes me so long to get back and catch up on some texts. Yeah, there's another guy, a friend of mine, and his text came in even before yours, Gylan. I'm looking at my text right now. This guy I went to high school with named Mark Thompson, who now is in New York. And he texted me last Wednesday, and I need to get back to him. So your text came in after that. So I at least go back to last Wednesday on how far I'm behind on these texts. Yeah, speaking of COVID, I got an email from my sister, not my sister Beth, my sister Kathy in California, and she got her booster shot. But before that, so she had her 2 Pfizers, Pfizer 1 and Pfizer 2, back. She got them as soon as she could get them, way early in the spring. So when she got her booster, they looked at her blood sample, and she had 0 antibodies at all. So they told her, you've essentially been walking around as if you were unvaccinated. So in other words, for whatever the reason, the regular vaccine for her had worn off. I've been vaccinated. I haven't had the booster yet. Thank you. I haven't had the booster yet, so I'm walking around like, ooh, I'm vaccinated. I still wear the mask, and I still take a lot of precautions. I sanitize like a maniac before I come into this studio or go anywhere. I still wash hands and use hand sanitizer. This is almost empty. So I do a lot. I know how dangerous it still is. But yeah, she was not magnetic anymore. Thank you, Gylan. But so her point to me was, if you can get the booster, get the booster. And even though they say you need to be 65 to get the booster, not if you read the rest of it, it says, or if you are at risk because of your work. And that means if you see a lot of people. So I'm going to go get the darn booster real soon. I know a lot of people who have. because even though the numbers seem to be waning, there are still lots of people getting COVID and still lots of people dying from it. So remain vigilant. The thing is real and it's deadly. Guyland, my mom's doing well. 98 now, but doing very, very well for 98. Thank you. You're going to have to get you on the show again, man. Here comes the 7 o'clock hour.
Now, Chris Duel.
We are at halftime for the week anyway. Halftime for the week, kind of halftime for the show. It's the middle hour. It's a 3-hour show from 6 to 9. This is the 7 o'clock hour. Welcome in. We appreciate your listening to us this morning, or if you're watching us on Facebook Live, great friend of the show, Guyland Jackson, just jumped on to the live video feed. Guyland has guest hosted on this show before and helped us out over the years on Spurs React. Good morning to Guyland and everybody on the live video feed. You can access the live video feed many ways. You can go to Facebook. It is on the live video stream. It's the Ticket 760 and the AM 1300, the Zone Facebook feeds. It's also on those Twitter pages for Ticket 760 and AM 1300, the Zone. There's also a Ticket 760 YouTube page where it is up, which makes me wonder, Shannon. So we're on Facebook Live, right? Live streams, kind of cool, as we mentioned. We're being seen in Kenya and Tokyo this morning. Now, with Facebook becoming Meta and with the Facebook experience going to go into virtual reality, does that mean that our live video stream is going to be like, I've seen those commercials during NFL football games in the jungle with like the moose and the panther and the birds and the monkeys. Is that what our live video stream is going to look like when we're streaming on Meta, everybody? Break out your Oculus Vice goggles and join us.
Well, one thing would be, I think the company is becoming Meta, but I think Facebook, as far as the app, is still going to be Facebook.
Okay, so when is all that weirdness going to kick in?
So I don't think we'll have to like jump, like, because if they did change it to Meta, we would still be calling it Facebook for like the first 7 months. So I think we're okay there.
I'll do it another 7 years.
The Oculus thing is a great thought because they do that a lot for sporting events, right? Where you can sit courtside.
Yes.
To a great game, playoff game, whatever. That'd be really cool if we had one where it was like within the studios and it was like you're sitting in the studios with us. I don't know who first thing in the morning people are like, let me roll over and put this thing on my face and sit here for 3 hours, but it'd be something.
Brian Gann with a thought on that one. How you doing this morning, Brian?
Doing well. I'm on my 3rd or 4th cup of coffee already. So the Meta deal is similar to what Google did. Google, of course, its parent company now isn't Google, it's Alphabet.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously all of the various pieces that are part of Facebook now are Facebook itself is just Facebook, but the entire company is now Meta.
So Brian, I see these commercials that show this, these kids and they're seeing this virtual cartoonish world with the animals, and they're saying this, and I think that the tagline, "This is going to be fun." So that's not what Facebook, the experience is going to be. When is all that stuff going to happen?
Well, tomorrow. But yeah, I think that's really what they're saying is that we're climbing outside of that thing that was Facebook, and we're much more than that. We have all these pieces, and something really special is coming, and it's part of the metaverse, which is Web 3.0 and all of those things. Which obviously I'm getting a little in the weeds here on that, but yeah, it's not going to be necessarily all connected to one platform.
Wow, it just gets crazier and crazier. And two things, Shannon, that strike me, and I know it happens to everybody. You'll look at something, an item for sale online, and the next thing I know, I am getting ads for that on my Facebook page, on my Instagram page, because they own Instagram as well. But I have seen something, and I don't know how this happened, Shannon. You and I will be talking about something on this show. And so in other words, I'm not clicking on an item. Let's say, for example, I'm drinking Pure Leaf. It hasn't been this, but it would be something like this. I'm drinking Pure Leaf iced tea in the studio this morning. You and I have said things in conversation, and we are streaming live on Facebook. And then I have gone home that morning and seen ads for something we've talked about verbally, but I have not clicked on. So there is something out there.
Verbal prompt somewhere.
Yeah. Not only watching what we click on and type, but there's something out there listening to what we say and then sending us ads for that. It's crazy.
It's very strange. Well, I do have an Oculus on my Christmas. That's like my big Christmas wish list item.
I have not.
I just want to play Beat Saber and do all of the things that you can do in the virtual world.
Yes.
I played virtual reality one time at High Five, and I'm like, I need one. I need one of my very own.
Yeah, I have you at different locations. I've put on some virtual goggles and done a little, and it is amazing, and it's only getting more and more elaborate. But I don't own that yet. But I'm probably like I remember when other people had the iPhones and smartphones, and I still had the little flip. All I was doing was texting and using my phone, and these people go, "Oh, there's an app for that," and I thought, well, someday, and now everybody's got a smartphone.
I was like, but my BlackBerry has the whole alphabet on it. I can feel the letters I'm typing. I can text blindly.
Yes.
Now I have to look at my phone.
And man, and the BlackBerry was such a status symbol.
Oh my gosh.
Like in the early 2000s. If you had a BlackBerry, you were beyond these schlubs who had cell phones, and that was it.
Don't you dare hit the internet button. That costs extra.
Yes.
Don't you dare.
Yeah, I love watching occasionally. I'll watch a period piece, something like from the 80s, a TV series that took place in the 80s. And it's before your time, Shannon, but it was real. Beepers. People had, if somebody wanted to call you, they would call your beeper, and then you wouldn't have a phone. So you would then have to drive to a payphone and then respond on the beeper. Brian, were you a beeper guy? You're a big guy. You must have carried a beeper everywhere. Smart.
Oh my God.
Well, and Brian, I remember the issue then was people said, I don't want a beeper because if I have a beeper, people are going to have access to me everywhere I go, which was like, it was almost like Orwellian. And, now with our smartphones, yes, now people do have access to you wherever you go. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. No, but and in retrospect, I kind of miss it. I kind of, I miss not being off grid for an extended period of time. But yes. But I do remember, maybe it was 1982. I remember getting my first beeper, and I thought, man, I'm a big shot. Whoa, I'm important. I remember walking around town with that beeper on my belt going, yeah, look at me. I'm somebody. Yeah. Whoa, excuse me. I just got beeped. Excuse me. I got to see if this is important. So, my goodness. And so, Shannon, my point is, technology, the Oculus goggles, and if just 5 years from now, we're going to be into something that we probably can't even imagine yet.
Yeah. I mean, same with the radio, and where, I haven't started in the new offices yet here in Austin, but just being there, I'm like, and the studios are literally like codenamed after spaceships. I'm like, you're losing me here. Where's the mic on button? Just skip me that far.
Yeah.
Today. It's all so cool, but I just imagine where it's going to be in the next year or two.
It is absolutely crazy. All right. Speaking of crazy, Shannon, crazy and a little sad and Coach K's grandson, who plays for Duke. This is kind of a big story in basketball. He's with another Duke basketball player, and he is pulled over for driving while intoxicated, which on so many levels, you look at who Coach Mike Krzyzewski is and what he has preached all of these years. And you think about the fact that Mike Krzyzewski originally was a coach at West Point. So he's all about discipline and accountability. And so it's the grandson of Mike Krzyzewski. His name is Michael Savarino. So he was driving with a freshman, Paolo Bacchero, and they were arrested early Sunday morning. Savarino is 20 years old. He was arrested with DWI charges. Bacchero, who is 19, was charged with aiding and abetting DWI, which in that state, it's interesting in North Carolina, Shannon, they really crack down. If you're driving with an impaired person, they nail you too. If you allowed an impaired person to get behind the wheel, then you are aiding and abetting. Now, Mike Krzyzewski, true to form, says he will be disciplined as the university dictates, as we dictate. He takes this seriously. But for a guy who's enjoying his farewell tour this year, Shannon, and to have your own grandson on the basketball team, this is certainly a ugly moment and a black eye and an embarrassment for Coach K.
It's horrible. And, you know, it doesn't seem like anyone got hurt. I think he was originally pulled over because he did not yield at a stop sign.
Yeah.
But after we just come off the Henry Ruggs situation and that fallout, you'd hope that for athletes, especially athletes at a school like Duke, are like, you know what, I have resources available to me that will provide me a ride, help me, come get me, whatever it may be. And you mentioned, you know, this is Coach K's grandson. Coach K's daughter and Michael's mother is an assistant athletic director at Duke University as well.
Double ouch. So mom and grandpa are responsible for what is going to take place here as far as punishment is concerned. Now, you mentioned the gentleman in the back seat who was charged with invading and abetting. How did you say it? Paolo? Pachero. Let's see.
Banchero?
Yeah, either Pachero or Pachero. Yeah.
He is predicted to be a very high draft pick. He still started on Tuesday night for
Pachero. I got it wrong. It starts with a B. Banchero. Yeah.
Michael was absent. Still no word. Obviously, Coach K is like, we're going to handle this internally, but it truly is a family affair. And you mentioned Coach K's farewell. He's trending yesterday. I am like, obviously he's trending. It's his farewell season. Like, they probably got a huge game tonight. It's probably, it's a goodbye. People are going to have their moments with him. What's this one about? And to see the news, shocking. And I feel for him and that family and then that school to have to deal with this.
Yeah. And I think you're right to bring up Henry Ruggs. Cause I mean, when they sit down and talk to this kid, and to me, 20 is still a kid. This was a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old. I mean, you've got to, and it's granted, young people do stupid things. College students do stupid things. I mean, on one level, you have some understanding, but you also have to realize that, with DWI and the cost of DWI and people who are killed, across the country, and no greater, higher profile example lately in the world of sports than Henry Ruggs III in Las Vegas. It's something you've got to drive this message home. And certainly I'm sure they will do it with this kid. I'm sure they'll do it with everybody else on the Duke basketball team. And I would imagine other college coaches across America might point to this and say, hey, you really, and we've said this too, Shannon, in the era of Uber, now more than ever, in your phone, you don't even have to have cash. Yeah, you've got a way to avoid this if you have the presence of mind to think about it and avoid it.
Yeah, an odd little segue, but you did mention cash here, which will trigger our 720 cash contest. Here it is, the keyword text to win $1,000.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword EASY to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's EASY to 200-200.
Easy, Shannon, not only the keyword, but also an excellent song by the Commodores in the 1970s. Easy Like Sunday Morning, Lionel Richie, lead vocals. I had the 8-track tape. I was driving to Holmes High School in my 1968 Plymouth Belvedere, cranking Easy by the Commodores on my quadraphonic. You talk about technology, Shannon. I had a quadraphonic 8-track tape deck. Do you know what that was?
I know what the iHeartRadio app is.
This was this, and I was convinced this was going to be the next. You have stereo, right? Stereo, left speaker, right speaker.
Yeah.
So different sound coming out of each. Quadraphonic in my 1968 Plymouth Belvedere. In the front doors of each passenger door, a driver door, there was a speaker in each of the front doors, and in the back of the car, on the back shelf underneath the glass, the windshield, back windshield, 2 speakers. So I had 4 speakers, and quadraphonic was each, instead of stereo, you had 4 quadraphonic. So there were quadraphonic 8-track tapes. And so like one speaker would be vocals, one would be lead guitar, another speaker would be bass, and another speaker would be drums. And you could change your own mix in your car to hear what you want. And it was like, whoa, this is the future. I got quadraphonic, baby. I can listen to it my way. And I don't know why it's not I don't know why it didn't last. It's better than stereo. And it went meh. Only idiots like Chris are into quadraphonic.
That was a lot to take in. I remember when I got my car when I graduated college, still the car I have today. I was so excited to have Bluetooth capabilities with my phone to play music and not have to be, bound down by a CD, even though it was a 6-changer CD player. Well, and now there's like Apple Play, and there's there's a phone, and you're like, I'm like, well, how this all happened so quickly. Now I want one of those.
Well, and again, back to technology. Remember the first time ever you had the phone, you talk about Bluetooth, the phone in your car and the ability to do a phone call in your car hands-free and just talk on the speakers in your car. Yet now it's like, all right, it's commonplace. It's no big deal. But that blew my mind the first time ever.
Yeah. And that too, like there was a shift at some, like that stuff used to be extra. That's going to be extra.
Yes.
Now it's the base model.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. All right. So we talked a little about Coach K and his grandson. Another interesting story, because I watched a Baltimore Ravens game recently, and I saw him running the football, and he seemed to be running well. Le'Veon Bell has been released by the Baltimore Ravens. It doesn't seem that long ago that Le'Veon Bell was holding out as a franchise player for the Pittsburgh Steelers and was regarded as the best running back in the NFL. It's just amazing how quickly fortunes can change and how quickly somebody's stock and career can fall. And that certainly looks like where we are with Le'Veon Bell right now.
Yeah, especially given the conversation kind of around running backs and their length of stay in the league with how much they get pounded on game after game, that it's almost, Zeke may be the last one to really be able to hold out and get all of that money in the way that he did. And Le'Veon, yeah, you're right. I mean, Steelers 2013 to 2018, Jets 19 to 20, Kansas City 20, Baltimore Ravens 21. I don't know that he ends up, and barring more injuries this season, I don't know that he ends up anywhere else.
Yeah. And you mentioned the wear and tear on a running back.
He's 29.
Yeah. And typically a running back by like 26, 27.
Yeah, he'll be 30 next season.
Yeah, their skills start to diminish. And then you add, Shannon, NFL general managers and coaches know from his Pittsburgh days that he can be kind of, a troublemaker in the locker room.
Yeah.
So you add all of that, and he held out his franchise tag year. He held out at Pittsburgh. He gave up $14 million the year he sat out. He left. I mean, you look at a man or a woman's income earning potential, not a lot of the rest of Le'Veon Bell's life, and he's 29 now, and hopefully he's managed his money well. but not a lot of years remaining in his life unless he's got some tech gig that we don't know about coming. But for him to make 14 mil in a year and on principle, he left that on the table. I think that is a decision he may regret if he doesn't already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at, once he left the Steelers and he became a Jet, he became a Jet in 2019. And then the 2020 season, he got hurt, and then he only played a couple games, and then he got released in the middle of the season. Didn't sign until a year later, so the middle of the next season, or excuse me, that same year. Then he signed with Kansas City. That obviously didn't really last. I mean, that kind of bouncing around, the injuries, the age, everything you just mentioned about, locker room guy. I think we may have seen the last of him. And if he does sign somewhere else, I see it kind of following this trend of yes, but not for long.
Yeah, and you were right to bring up Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, I do believe he is the last of a breed. It is a passing league now. You've seen teams like the San Francisco 49ers get running backs like Raheem Mostert, who had been cut by 4 teams, and you get him for like a tenth of the price you have to pay Ezekiel Elliott. Go ahead.
In Zeke, you see him more active in, those slant routes and even blocking. He's been credited a lot lately for the blocking he's been doing. And a lot of running backs don't want to do it because that is just more damage to their body. So at the very least, I got to give credit to Zeke for being that team guy. And he's been doing it really well thus far this season. He's having a great season.
Keep it up, Zeke. Get us to the Super Bowl. It's been too long, Dallas Cowboys. Coming up, Shannon's salty shakedown, including a name change for one of the highest profile sports venues in America and around the world. We will document that for you, along with this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. We'll dive deep into the Texas Longhorns with Taylor Estes just after 8 o'clock. The boss man, Brian Gann, makes the show go. She's the salty one. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, and Christopher Smith from Kenya this morning. I didn't see you. I didn't see that, what you wrote during the segment when we were talking about the drunk driving incident with the Duke basketball team. Christopher Smith says the human brain is not fully developed until age 25. Maybe all scholarship students shouldn't have access to a vehicle until age 25. That's an interesting point. Now, I remember being like 23, 24 and, hearing about, insurance companies making, sub 25-year-olds pay a higher premium, and certainly sub 25-year-old males who statistically took more risks behind the wheel than women. There's something to that. We were talking about technology. Wes Perkins says you felt special back in the day if you had Beta instead of VHS. Yeah, Betamax. They were the elites. I had a custom 12-disc CD changer in my Oldsmobile in college. Crazy. Yeah, I never had the multi-CD disc changer. I was not that rich or that cool. I envied those. I wanted one. I had friends who had those, man. I wanted one. I coveted it. I think after Guyland Jackson wrote, with all the audio content that is available with your voice, literally now your voice will live forever because I will be able to take artificial intelligence and reproduce your voice. Yeah, and you talk about AI, and I'm very interested. I've talked about the new ABBA album. They are making like these holographic avatars. I think in London or in Amsterdam, they're building an arena, or there is an arena where they are going to have live concert shows, and the people in ABBA are now in their 70s. But they're doing live concert shows with avatars of themselves from the 1970s when they were in their 30s. So more of that. And we had the discussion recently, man, if they do like a Beatles Avatar show with John and George. Obviously, they've passed, and Ringo and Paul in their prime. I'm going, or Elvis. I'm going. Thank you, Ralph. Ralph Balderas with a link and an E60. Shannon did the story about the California School for the Deaf that is making big noise in high school football. Good morning, Anthony Del Toro. Paying bills since 6 a.m. Anthony doing some adulting this morning. I'll be back in a sec. I'm going to heat up the coffee. Thank you, Mike Taylor. Good morning, everybody on Facebook Live. 18 of you currently. When we see you, we say hello, because we should. Jason Paniagua, Wes Perkins. Lots of great contributions from those guys. If you're new or in here recently, Christopher Smith is in Nairobi, Kenya this morning, joining us. It's crazy. And earlier, I don't think he's still in here, Taro Kotani. There's Fernando Solano. Fernando, we'll put your greeting up on the screen. Fernando Solano says good morning. Good morning, Fernando, which is a great ABBA song. I'm sure you know that, Fernando. In fact, one of my favorite ABBA songs is Fernando. Thank you very much. If I go see the live ABBA show in London or wherever it is, it's either London or Amsterdam. My nephew, Grant, I noticed on social media, is in Amsterdam right now. Grant went to Churchill High School many, 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 many years ago. So coming up, the Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays. Here we go.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-9760.
And even if you are too sexy for your shirt, you're still welcome. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Lots going on, including yet another chance for you to win $1,000. We do it 20 after the hour. So that means your next shot coming up at 8:20. And before that, just after 8 o'clock, we'll talk Texas Longhorn football. They are trying to turn it around this weekend at West Virginia. Texas needs to win its final 2 football games at West Virginia and then home against Kansas State to become bowl eligible. We'll dive into that with Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. Probably get into Texas Longhorn hoops as well. Women playing real well. Men, very, very good. As I mentioned, Sports Illustrated picking the Texas Longhorns men's basketball team to go to the Final Four, which is pretty phenomenal. So we'll get into all of that in a moment. Shannon's Salty Shakedown. But first, how about some sports birthdays and this day in sports history? November 17th, 1940, the Green Bay Packers became the first NFL team to travel by aeroplane. Technology is the theme today, Shannon. Before 1940, and no other team had yet done it in 1940, it was either take the train or take the bus to play. And that's probably why the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers didn't come online until much later. You know, all the teams were in the East so that you could get there by train or bus because nobody was flying to the games. That's absolutely crazy to think about that.
That's a fun fact.
Fun fact.
That one.
Here's another fun fact. This day in 1956, a Syracuse fullback by the name of Jim Brown scored the NCAA record of, he personally scored 43 points in a football game as Syracuse trounced Colgate. Colgate, I never wanted to go to a school named after a toothpaste, but Colgate played like toothpaste on that day. Jim Brown personally scores 43, and as we all know, he would go to the NFL, appropriately to the Cleveland Browns, and become the NFL all-time rushing leader until Walter Payton broke that record, and then later Emmitt Smith would break that record. Pretty cool. Jim Brown, he wasn't too bad. Another guy who wasn't too bad was Dale Earnhardt, Sr. On this day in 1991, Dale Earnhardt won the 41st NASCAR Sprint Cup. Dale Earnhardt, before his tragic death at Daytona, was certainly the face of NASCAR. That's your sports history. Time for some sports birthdays. Born on this day in 1930, Bob Mathias. He was an American decathlete. He won Olympic gold in the decathlon twice in 1948 and 1952. He went on to be a U.S. congressman. Talk about a Renaissance man. He was born in Tulare, California on this day in 1930. He passed away in 2006. Born on this day in 1944, one of the greatest pitchers ever, Hall of Fame pitcher Tom Seaver, who won the Cy Young Award in 1969 with the amazing Mets. Mets won the World Series that year. He would go on to win the Cy Young in 69, 73, 75. A 12-time Major League Baseball All-Star, born in Fresno, California. Tom Seaver passed away in the year 2020. Born on this day in 1945, Basketball Hall of Fame forward Elvin Hayes went to the University of Houston, NBA scoring champion in 1969, an NBA All-Star from 1969 to 1980. Elvin Hayes was born in Rayville, Louisiana. And finally, born on this day in 1978, born in New Orleans, Louisiana, longtime NFL wide receiver Reggie Wayne, 14 years in the NFL, 13 of them with the Indianapolis Colts, mainly catching touchdowns from Peyton Manning, won a Super Bowl with the Colts, a 6-time Pro Bowler, finished his career with the New England Patriots. Happy birthday, Reggie Wayne. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, farm animals, pole assassins, and even monkeys, it is time once again for your midweek salty shakedown.
All right, Chris, you teased it, so we will get straight to it. A huge name change in the world of sports venues, to be specific, is going to occur next month, specifically on Christmas Day. Staples Center changing its name, Chris, after being the name of that arena for 22 years. I guess with the great resignation or just people working from home, people are buying a lot less office supplies. And so maybe Staples just doesn't have the coin anymore to afford that arena, because it is going to become crypto.com.
Wow.
Not crypto, crypto.com.
Huh.
I don't know what the legalities are as far as broadcasters and stuff having to say the full name, but I would imagine that it's part of it. That is going to be very strange, a very hard transition for, I feel like, a lot of people to make. The specifics of the deal have not been released, but people are speculating that it could be a deal worth $700 million for over 20 years. That would make it the richest naming rights deal in sports history. Now, this crypto.com company was founded in 2016. And they're already shelling out this amount of money. And this isn't the first time they shelled out money, Chris, because they already have they're the jersey sponsor patch on the 76ers. So they're already in the NBA. They're also part of the NHL Montreal hockey team, as well as Formula One and UFC and some other sporting ventures across the pond. I have never heard of this crypto.com until now, but with the Lakers and the Nets set to play on Christmas Day in Los Angeles, we'll be hearing a lot of it starting on Christmas. Not much of a gift, I would think, but it's kind of a change. Now, you are from, or not from, but you spent a fair amount of time in Los Angeles. I don't know if you were there during the full 22 season, or part of the 22 seasons that it's been the Staples Center. But to me, Staples Center, as a 28-year-old, I mean, it feels like MSG, right? It's just like, that's the place. I know there's the Forum in LA, but I feel like...
The fabulous Forum.
Right, but I feel like when you go to an event in New York, if it's at MSG, that's huge. If you go to an event and it's at Staples Center, that's huge. And so this name change feels huge. Your thoughts?
It's just a sign of the times. And, you know, you ran through a few of the things. Brian Gann sent me some more specifics on crypto.com. Awesome. It is a Hong Kong based cryptocurrency operator. So Hong Kong getting involved. And you alluded to some of these, but here's some specifics. It announced a 5-year, $100 million global partnership with Formula One in June. It's got a 1-year sponsorship deal with the NHL's Montreal Canadiens, a 10-year, $175 million branding deal with the UFC. It did that in July. It is all over sports, as you mentioned, Shannon. So I guess we better get used to crypto.com in our lives, and certainly in sports.
I mean, what happens? I know, like, NFTs and Bitcoin, crypto, like, they're the huge thing right now. But what if, for whatever reason, it just all comes crashing down? Then what do they do?
And that's my fear. I remember, Shannon, when everybody, when the .coms began to come online, people were putting millions of dollars into certain .coms that overnight crashed to zero. So I'm still, and I don't have a lot of discretionary income to take a risk, and I haven't touched crypto yet, and unless I get a really good reason, I am still very concerned about it.
Well, you mentioned sign of the times. Crypto.com taking over Staples Center feels very similar to what was formerly known as the Mercedes-Benz Dome, now being the Caesars Superdome. Gambling and cryptocurrency just kind of becoming the way, and they're getting all over sports, as they should. I mean, we love sports. Why can't they love sports too? But again, that'll take place on December 25th, aka Christmas Day. First game there will be Lakers versus the Nets. All right, story number 2, Chris. We're closing the final chapter. We're turning the page. The book is about to be to have ended, and I'm going to tell you what that ending is. We've been through it with the Cleveland Guardians saga. First, it was Cleveland Indians changing their name to the Cleveland Guardians. We then get the story that, oh, wait, there's a roller derby team in Cleveland already going by that name, and they've been going by that name since 2013. We then get the news that the roller derby team is suing because they didn't like the offer they were given from the MLB. They felt it was disrespectful. Well, now they have come to some sort of agreement. That agreement has not been announced specifically, other than both the roller derby team and the Cleveland Indians MLB team will both be referred to as the Cleveland Guardians. That is official. And because of that, sir, the Cleveland Guardians baseball team can now release merch. They were planning on doing it Monday. The holidays are coming up. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of fans who want to get their hands on the new stuff for the new season. That's going to be here for, you know what? I know baseball just ended, but all this stuff just seems to happen so quickly. That should be coming sooner rather than later now that this has come to an end. Now, I ask you this because, as I said, we've had these several chapters, and this is the final one. But the last chapter we had was that the roller derby team was suing the MLB, right? And I'm like, here's where the drama, we've reached the climb. Here's where the drama is. That it's going to get dirty. David versus Goliath. Here we go. So I'm happy they figured it out, but I feel like we're maybe missing a little piece. But your thoughts on the ending to this saga?
Yeah, I would like to know the details. And what I'm hoping, Shannon, I'm hoping the baseball team and MLB did the right thing, because truly this roller derby team, and it is David versus Goliath, they had the name first. I like what I'm hearing, that they get to keep the name. And how cool for, if they were forced to take the name, if there was a lump sum settlement and then they became the, Cleveland Rollers or whatever, for them to now be able to exist. And that's a cool thing now that the Major League Baseball team is the Cleveland Guardians, and the roller derby team can say, hey, we were here first. We had the name. This is our namesake. As I said to you a week or two ago, hopefully they can cross promote each other. Yes. Hopefully, they could have roller derby night at the baseball stadium some night.
And I think it'll naturally happen. I mean, it's kind of been happening this whole time, as much as, it's like, well, that's not fair that they're taking our name. Well, in a way, they're bringing you all of this attention and new fans, probably people that are like, roller derby, what is that? And they might come to really love it, think it's an awesome sport. And like I said, the merch is going to soon be available for the new Cleveland Guardians. There's a good chance that people are going to start Googling Cleveland Guardians more and more, and they may find themselves on that roller derby website more often than not. True. And search for the MLB team. And that's just more clicks, more whatever, more stuff to say, hey, be a sponsor of our website, because look how many clicks we're getting now. So I think it works well for both parties. But as I said, that ends that chapter. Cleveland Guardians officially part of the MLB. The saga has ended. All right. Finally, today we move to the NFL. Kind of some breaking news, Chris, that I never saw coming personally. And I want him to tell you for himself. Head of the Patriots, Mr. Mac Jones, the future. He, much like Tom Brady, does weekly radio hits on WEEI, and he was asked a very specific question, specifically, what was the worst job you've ever had? Because he's got kind of a cool job right now, I'd say, being the quarterback of the New England Patriots. They're playing pretty well. He's getting high praise from most around the league, and I'll just let him tell you for himself what that job was.
Worst job. I mean, I used to be a child model and actor or whatever.
Wait,
and that was fun.
Oh, whoa. Go back. You used to be a child model / actor? Any roles in shows that we know about? Commercials?
Nothing crazy, but there are a few commercials out there you guys can try and find.
Turns out this man was always meant for the spotlight, Chris. Now, I am a little disappointed because, as we know, the draft process is brutal right? I mean, the doctor's exams, the testing, both mental, physical. People get all up in your business. They have all the stories that run across the networks as they look, especially when you're a high draft pick like a Mac Jones and going to be a quarterback of a franchise. I can't believe no one figured this out until recently when he announced it. He said a couple of teammates may have known, but they obviously don't really talk about it. He doesn't want to poke fun at them. But the internet, upon this realization, did do its thing. There are a couple pictures out there now floating around. He's a young schoolboy, very, very blonde hair. One that looks like he's almost in a school uniform, modeling for that, and another in like a very posh tennis outfit. With a racket propped over his shoulder. Very cute indeed. People are still looking for the commercials. We've yet to find those, but we'll see just how great his acting chops were back then. But always meant for the spotlight, one Mac Jones, sir.
Wow, and what a year for Mac Jones. The Patriots have won 4 in a row. They are 6-4, 1/2 game behind your 6-3 Buffalo Bills for first place in that AFC East. At the moment, Shannon, it's very good to be Mac Jones.
Yes, sir. I very much agree. And who knows, maybe now that this has come to light, he'll get some roles in the future, right? We've seen J.J. Watt appear on plenty of TV shows and in movies. Green Bay Packers, I believe, we're in Pitch Perfect too. Like people love bringing athletes in, right? That's a fan base that they can draw in to go see that film or TV show. So maybe he'll get a gig here in the off season. There it is, a name-changing,
yes,
game-changing,
yes,
Shakedown.
Outstanding salty shakedown. And among those stories, Shannon, and your final story, Mac Jones, and the question originally to him when he made that revelation was, what was your worst job ever? Mm-hmm. And I think that begs the question for you, and I'm going to want to know from Brian Gann as well. Shannon, what was your worst job ever?
I didn't start working until after I graduated. And I graduated in December, which is an odd time to graduate. Felt the pressure of, you're graduated, you need a job, you need something. And worked as I was an assistant sergeant at arms for the Texas Senate 83rd or 84th, 2015 legislative session.
Job. That is an amazing first job ever.
You're treated like the scum of the earth, even though no one realizes that if you make a mistake in your job, a bill could be thrown out immediately.
Yikes.
And taken off. And that year specifically, there were some pretty large bills on the floor. Luckily, those weren't my committees. But yeah, I don't want to do it again. The people I worked with were a lot of fun, like our little group. And I very much enjoyed my boss. He wrote me a fantastic recommendation letter. And he was one of those bosses that most people would probably think he's he's Marine, huge guy, military, takes no crap. But I had a really good rapport with him, and so I enjoyed that experience. But that part, the job itself. I will write
down assistant sergeant at arms for the Texas legislature, Brian Gann.
Yeah, I've had so few paid jobs. No. My first paid job was actually in radio.
My goodness.
Prior to that, I had to pump gas at my dad's gas station. So that probably would be the worst.
Wait, is it
because I did that?
You pump the gas for other people? Like they do up north?
That was a thing.
And the thing I remember the most is somebody wanted oil put in.
Uh-oh.
There, at the pump. And I was not smart enough to know the difference in oil and transmission fluid.
Oh!
I nearly lost my non-paying job before it started. So I guess the worst was pumping gas. But I've never had a paid job that was not tied to radio.
That is amazing that it's been all radio all of your career. No wonder you're so good at it. That makes sense. You've probably done every job there is in radio. My worst job ever, Shannon. I was once asked. I was out of money. My sister's boyfriend got me a job on a construction site, working construction. But we found out quickly I had no construction skills at all. So they made me a ditch digger.
My gosh.
I'm not proud of this. They had illegal workers who were, illegal immigrants who did not have green card. They were digging ditches at a construction site in Southern California. They made me, I didn't know this about ditch digging. After about 10 minutes, your arms are quivering. Because I had a shovel and we're digging ditches.
Yeah.
And my arms were like jelly. At lunch, it was time for lunch, and they go, okay, Chris, lunch is going to be over there by the picnic tables. I left. I quit. I went into my car. I drove away. I collected no money. I couldn't. I said, I cannot be a ditch digger. So my worst job ever lasted half a day.
Please tell me you've seen the movie Holes or read the book.
Have not.
Story of your life, apparently.
I will have to look that up. The world needs ditch diggers too. Judge Schmale said that in Caddyshack. Coming up, Texas Longhorn Talk. It's the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Sam Tobias says there are a couple of full-service gas stations around San Antonio. Yeah, it was. They used to all, when I was a kid, every gas station was full service. There were no self-service. You had to have an attendant do that for you. Then self-service happened. Christopher Smith says, my father is a master plumber. Very nice. Yeah, see, I've got a friend who I went to high school with, Danny Pagel, who owns a plumbing company and makes a ton of money. I should have had the presence of mind. Yeah, I went and studied journalism. Somebody should say, Chris, just be a plumber. Open your own plumbing company. Then you can just rake in all the cash. No! I want to go to film school. I want to be a journalist. Christopher Smith says full service in Alamo Heights and in the state of Vermont. Yeah, the 09ers are above pumping their own gas. Ew, I live in 09. I don't pump gas. That's for the proletariat. That's for the working class. Some of you know I am a faux niner, which means I live in 09, but I don't live in Alamo Heights. I'm probably the poorest guy in Alamo Heights. I live in 09, but I'm not in Alamo Heights. I'm a faux nine. I'm right across North New Braunfels. I'll be back. Talk amongst yourselves.
Emilio, I don't even think I can fathom that job. What? Especially rattlesnakes. Is anyone, for whatever reason, out of pure interest or pure enjoyment, going to be watching Tiger King 2? Because it was certainly a time when the first one came out, and I did watch it, but I'm not sure about this second one. Fair, Sam. Fair. I'm leaning that way as well. It's a very specific time in which we all watched the first one. Emilio, I can't imagine you're still friends with this person after they got you that job. Louisa, I believe they opened their season mid-February. Looking forward to it.
Were you talking about your vacation, Shannon?
Louisa asked when Texas baseball started.
Oh, okay. See, I heard you say the other day you're going on vacation. I go on vacation as well in February. We got to figure out if we're both gone at the same. I do during the NBA All-Star break in February.
Right.
So, I mean,
I think that's closer to I'm at the end of February. Is your
okay.
All-Star typically in the beginning of February?
Yeah, if they overlapped, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But I think it's kind of fun for you to do it, solo or with Paul or
Coach
with
A was great. Yeah. Did we find out about next week?
Oh, we haven't. Let me go ask. But yeah, we'll I think the All-Star breaks typically it's typically right around Valentine's Day because we used to go to Cancun pre-pandemic, and it would seem like it would always be Valentine's Day. I'll go ask him right now.
Okay. Yeah, Louisa, it's far out, but with how fast everything's going, I'll probably be here before you know it. I was with Harj and forget the other guy's name, a guy who's like a scout for the MLB, and we were talking some baseball yesterday, some tournaments. Pablo, what football team? We've moved on. I'm currently undecided of subjecting myself to DKR on Black Friday for that Kansas State game.
Yeah, Shannon, both days off, Thursday and Friday.
Okay. And then I'm off again, kind of like last year at the end of December.
How dare you?
Just sprinkled in my remaining days.
So rough, I mean, off the top of your head, how many days do we know?
It's the 23rd through, or no, the 24th through, no, the 23rd through the 3rd.
Okay. And I'm off one
But
day in December. I think it's the 20. I'm performing a wedding. I'm performing a wedding this weekend, and I'm performing another wedding
Comedy?
December 21st. So
Stand-up?
one this weekend and one in December. So that day, and that one's in Fredericksburg in December. So I need to take, so December 20, I'm taking the next day off. So December 22nd. So that might be, if you're off the 23rd, that might be your last day. So, yeah. So we'll figure it all out. Yeah. And as Christopher Smith says, we only work 3 hours a day from 6 to 9.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is.
Then why am I so tired, Christopher?
This is the Chris Duel Show.
Wow, Louisa going to DKR. Very nice.
Now, Chris Duel.
Welcome into Wednesday, November 17th. You have made it to the midpoint of the week. And as you know, Shannon and I start the weekend on Thursday. So we're just on the cusp of the weekend. We figure, when by the time Thursday night football gets here,
we only work 3 hours a day, according to some. So
I know Christopher Smith from Nairobi, Kenya this morning telling us that you guys only work 3 hours a day from 6 to 9. So
can you tell the bosses that?
tell it to my Fitbit. That tells me how much I slept last night. So thank you very much. Coming up, we will speak with the managing editor of Horns 24/7, Taylor Estes. We will dive into all things Texas Longhorns. I see one of our regular listeners and viewers, Shannon Luisa Alanis, says, I'm going to be at DKR for the game against Kansas State. Now, that will be a week from Saturday. And I already looked that one up, Shannon. That's another 11 a.m. game. And actually, that's on a Friday. That's the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Kansas State versus Texas.
I might still be in a food coma at that point.
Yeah.
We'll see, but
very probably.
I don't know.
We found out you don't eat desserts as much on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I don't like pecan pie. I don't really do nuts. So the pecan pie, no thanks. Pumpkin pie, no thanks. I may make some fudge though. I've got a family fudge recipe that there's only a window that I make fudge, and it's from Thanksgiving to Christmas. That's it. So maybe to appease myself for dessert, I'll make some fudge.
Very, very nice. So your thoughts about the Longhorns, are you at all concerned? I mean, you got to be concerned taking this show on the road to West Virginia.
Yeah.
This week.
Chris Del Conte released a statement yesterday.
Can you see if Taylor picks up?
We're going to obviously saying we're disappointed. 5 straight losses.
I didn't see her there. Sorry.
Anywhere near where we want to be, but they stand by them. They expect restriction.
She overslept yesterday, so I'll go to her right now.
Decided to point out that apparently last week 25 players missed practice at one point because of the flu.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, what? So I'll be interested to see what Taylor knows about that, especially during COVID times. I'm like, flu?
Yeah.
We were able to confirm it was flu. And 25? That's a lot of kids at one time. And that's certainly no excuse for that performance. But it is an interesting note that was made yesterday.
Well, Taylor is here. She is the managing editor of Horns 24/7. Taylor Estes. Taylor, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are y'all doing?
We are doing well, but we can't necessarily say that about the Texas Longhorn football team. It has been ugly. And, of course, last weekend, the loss in overtime to Kansas, 57-56. Shannon said this earlier in the week, Taylor, maybe sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can build it back up and get things back on track. I don't know if rock bottom could be any worse than this. How you feeling right now about the Longhorn football team?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that this is probably rock bottom for Texas football, especially coming off of a 5-game losing streak with the worst loss of all.
Hey, Julio.
A former one-win Kansas team that hadn't won on the road against a Big 12 team, I believe, since 2008. So it's been, a rough year, a rough start for Steve Sarkisian. But I heard, Shannon did mention what Chris Del Conte said, about the 25 players that missed practice leading up to the Kansas game. From what we were told, there was about 25 players on between Tuesday, I think, and Wednesday's practices that were out, and including pretty much the entire defensive line, plus some linebackers too. From what I heard, Luke Brockermeyer was one of the players who had the flu as well. And so, everything that probably could have went wrong for Texas, I feel like this season has, ever since essentially, halftime of the Oklahoma game. And, I know that a lot of fans are rightfully so, angry at the state of the Texas program. And, the last coach that lost to Kansas was fired, Charlie Strong back in 2016, as everyone remembers that. So this is definitely a crucial moment, I think, for the program. But, with Chris Del Conte coming out with his 40 Acres Insider newsletter, essentially giving a very glowing and detailed vote of confidence for Steve Sarkisian and his staff, I think that tells you how at least the administration is feeling about Steve Sarkisian as the head coach, the coaching staff, and, kind of the situation that they walked into when they took the job at Texas.
Well, Taylor, from the flu during to injuries come Saturday, it seemed like every other play there was a guy needing assistance to get back up. Bijan Robinson and Josh Thompson now ruled out for the rest of their season. Obviously, the names alone let people know that's a pretty big hit to the team. But just how much will this team miss these two guys, especially as they try to win out to become bowl eligible?
Robinson is a huge loss. I mean, he has been the bright spot, I would say, across the board for Texas, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but he's just been, such an elite player for Texas and a consistent playmaker. So, losing your best player is never, a good situation. And I don't think that anybody out there would deny that Bijan Robinson is the best player on this Texas football roster and probably will be the best player on any Texas football roster that he plays for during his college career. So, I think that that's definitely a huge loss. But the loss of Josh Thompson is far more substantial, I think, than people are giving it credit. There's been a lot of people that have really been down on the Texas defense throughout this season. But Josh Thompson has been really quietly putting together, I believe, a really solid senior season at cornerback. He's been a pretty lockdown cornerback for Texas. Go back to, the Iowa State game when Iowa State, was driving into the red zone. I mean, Josh Thompson made 3 back-to-back plays, essentially that forced Iowa State to settle for a field goal, including a monster pass breakup in the end zone against Iowa State. So that was the first 3 points, and I mean, plays like that, there's more of those type of plays from Josh Thompson, I think, than there are less of. And unfortunately for him, because this defense has been so up and down, I feel like he probably hasn't given the credit that he's due for his performance this season. But, he's a huge loss as well. So 2 players, 2 leaders too. I mean, Josh Thompson, he's part of the leadership committee or council that Steve Sarkisian has put together. He's a 5th-year senior. He's been through the ringer and he's always stuck to it. So that's a huge loss for him. It's unfortunate that he won't be able to finish his season. Then obviously losing your best player in general with Bijan Robinson going down, that's definitely not the ideal situation when you are in a must-win 2-game stretch here for Texas.
We are talking Texas Longhorns football with Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. And Taylor, after that overtime loss to Kansas, and I'm paraphrasing, but Steve Sarkisian said something along the lines of, at some point he felt, and I think he said something along the lines of, maybe the players were tuning me out. He said something along those lines, which kind of scared me, because I think about something like that. It's like, wow, at this level, at a program like Texas, I would imagine those players and those coaches are laser focused on each other and the game plan and the moment, throughout the game, or certainly as much as possible. Obviously, and you mentioned Chris Del Conte's vote of confidence for head coach Steve Sarkisian. These aren't his players. We haven't had a chance yet to see him really bring in his recruits here. But at what point, if things don't get better, and hopefully they get better right away this weekend at West Virginia, but if things kind of flounder a little bit longer, how soon must Steve Sarkisian turn this around before he does start losing the confidence of the people who matter most, like Chris Del Conte?
I think it depends on who you ask that question to. I think right now, I believe that the Texas administration, the people who, are the decision makers in this, I think that they are willing to give Steve Sarkisian time, and he deserves it. I mean, the one consistent thing that Texas has had in the last decade of Texas football has been change. I mean, you look at the number of assistant coaches, coordinators, head coaches. I mean, in a 10-year span, that number is substantial. It's not, just some fluke that, they just turned over one staff. No, it's been complete staff overhauls. And obviously it hasn't worked out in Texas' favor. And so, I said this on our podcast this week, the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And at what point, if Texas doesn't give a coach the time to truly build his program, not even just build his program, but have consistency in a program to where he's able to coach the recruits that he brings onto campus their senior year, that's something that no coach has been able to do since Mac Brown. And so, you look at, or at least, from high school recruiting at least, but so you look at the situation that Steve Sarkisian has inherited, and honestly, I think if Texas officials are smart, they've got to give him at least 4 years to really try to rebuild this thing, because, there's been plenty of rebuild. I mean, that's probably a word I think that Texas fans are so tired of hearing. Honestly, covering this program for the last 10 years, I'm kind of tired of saying it too. But the reality is all of these quote unquote rebuilds that Texas has gone through have never been completed. They've always been kind of blown up in the middle of the quote unquote rebuild. And, I think that it hasn't worked out doing that for the last 10 years for Texas football. And so they've got to do something differently. And I think that something different that needs to be done clearly is giving Steve Sarkisian and his staff, time to truly build this. And, you look at what Chris Del Conte said in his letter. I mean, you go back to the 2018 and 2019 recruiting classes at Texas, those were the number 3 ranked recruiting classes in the country, according to 24/7 Sports Composite. And Del Conte said 52% of those 2018 signing class and 46% of the 2019 signing class are no longer at Texas. Those are your juniors and seniors. And Texas is lacking 52% of the 2018 and 46% of 2019. So if you want a clear view of what Texas football is and what Steve Sarkisian is inheriting, you want to point to the talent and all of that. But when the majority and the bulk of the talent from the signing classes of, the last 3 or 4 years, when they're not on the campus, how can you really say that they have a bulk of talent at his disposal? He really doesn't. And so I think at this point, the one thing I will say this, I mean, I'm barring some sort of off the field, issue or scandal or something like that. I think that Steve Sarkisian deserves the time if Texas football doesn't want to turn into, honestly, a Tennessee football of just a constant change and turnover and all this hype and hope that, the next guy is going to be the guy, and then he doesn't even get a chance to really, complete the job. So I think, I believe that Chris Del Conte, with what he said in the 40 Acres Insider, I believe that is truly how he feels. From everything that we've heard, the administration wants Sarkisian to have the amount, ample of time to try to fix this, barring, I guess, them going 4 and, or 4 and 9, whatever it would be, 4 and 8, back-to-back years or something like that. But yeah, I think that overall, I do think that this truly was a vote of confidence to give him enough time. And, the fans that are looking for change right now, look at the future, look at the past 10 years and tell me where the change has ever worked out. Because you can point to whatever you want, but the reality is Texas is on his 4th head coach in 10 years. Naturally, I think that is a sign that the change is the one thing that actually is not working. So maybe it's time to change the script there.
Taylor, you mentioned change and turnover, so I just want to see if you put this rumor to bed for us, because we did have a listener try and tell us yesterday that Gary Patterson, formerly of TCU, was in Austin and that he was going to be part of this Texas coaching staff at some point in the future. I haven't heard anything of this. Have you? And have you heard of any other potential changes that might get made? I know Sark, during his presser on Monday, seemed pretty confident, right? He said he's brought these guys in for a reason. He's seen what they can do. They've produced NFL level talent. They can do it again. It's just going to take some time. Your thoughts?
I mean, I think that's probably wishful thinking, probably by some Texas fans that may think that he's going to be the defensive coordinator or something like that. I don't necessarily. It would surprise me, I would say, if Gary Patterson truly joined the Texas football staff or even wanted to. At that point, I feel like a better fit for him would be to go be an analyst at Alabama or something like that. And then, if he wants to get back into the head coaching job. And Gary Patterson has been so down on Texas in his entire career. I mean, that would just be such a shocking development. I have not heard anything of substance of that right now. However, nothing, I guess I shouldn't be surprised when it comes to Texas football after the last, decade of covering this program. But, I think that there's a lot of people, obviously, I think the elephant in the room is there's a lot of people that are expecting or wanting a change at defensive coordinator with Pete Kwiatkowski. I mean, I think that, Texas has so many defensive coordinators in the last 10-year stretch, and all of these coaches come to Texas and they had glowing remarks, not just from the head coach of Texas, but from, coaching staff along the way. And, Pete Kwiatkowski was no different for what he was able to do, initially there at Boise State and then at Washington. And, I mean, what happened? Did he come to Texas and forget how to coach? No, he just doesn't have his guys. So I think that, when anybody who wants to change a defensive coordinator, you have to realize that if they make that change, that would be 4 defensive coordinators and 4 different defensive schemes that the upperclassmen would have learned in 4 years. So I don't know how great of a recipe for success that is. I will say one thing that you kind of wonder how much this has impacted the success of the defense for Texas is the fact that Pete Kwiatkowski was one of the last coaches that Steve Sarkisian hired. I mean, he had pretty much the entire defensive staff done before he hired the defensive coordinator. In my experience in covering Texas football, and most times, more times than not with college football, coordinators at least get a pick of their, at least their offensive or defensive line coach, but they usually get a pick of who they want on their staff. Pete Kwiatkowski did not get that opportunity since the Texas defensive staff, for the most part, was already assembled before he was hired by Steve Sarkisian. So, if there is going to be any quote unquote changes, I feel like where you would maybe consider one is maybe consider Pete Kwiatkowski being able to bring in his own assistant coaches to coach the positions in his defensive scheme, maybe ones that are more familiar with it. I don't know. But at this point, I mean, we have not heard anything in, definitive that there's going to be any staff changes or anything. And I think that, if Steve Sarkisian were to have his way, I don't necessarily know that he would change much on the staff because, I don't necessarily think that he believes the staff is the issue. And I really, you go back to that Bo Davis video that was leaked. I mean, can you really say it's the staff not trying to hold these guys accountable when you see, that going on that a player is leaking the video? I mean, obviously there's issues in the locker room, and it starts, I think, with the team more so than the staff. So I think if Steve Sarkisian has his way, it doesn't sound like he's getting pressure from any higher ups to make any changes. So at this point, we have not heard that is going to be in the works or anything like that. And, as long as the administration isn't trying to push his hand, I think that I would be surprised if there was too many, substantial staff changes in year 1 under Steve Sarkisian.
More with Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7, but right now, a little bit late, but we're getting to it. It is the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. We typically do this on the 20s throughout the day from 6:20 to 9:20. Somebody wins $1,000 every single hour. Here is your 8 o'clock hour edition of the contest.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword $dollar to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's $dollar to 200-200.
Dollar is the keyword, and good luck, and you get another shot at 1,000 at 9:20. Talking Longhorns with Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. Taylor, Saturday after the Kansas loss in overtime, the UTSA men's basketball team was at number 1 in the country, Gonzaga. Tough place for anybody to win. Gonzaga did prevail. That was, I think, to be expected. It would have been a huge win for the program had they found a way to win. Any changes in your thoughts about the men's basketball team, who a lot of experts, including Sports Illustrated, projecting to go deep into the NCAA tournament this year? How do you feel about them after the tough loss to Gonzaga last weekend?
I mean, I think that, I think especially Texas fans probably needed a win there, coming out of that Kansas game. But I mean, I think that there was some concerning. I believe that Gonzaga outscored Texas from the paint 44-22. I think that's, some people maybe a cause for concern, but I mean, this is the number one team in the country that Texas basketball is facing. This is not, a one-win Kansas team, not to, really, add fuel to the fire there. But yeah, I mean, I think that, obviously a loss is a loss, and it's not there's no asterisk on any type of, schedule or anything along those lines. But I do think when Texas does get Dylan Disu back from injury, I think that should be coming. I believe Chris Beard said that he's talking more about it. I don't know when the timeline is for his return. I think that'll help Texas, especially in the paint, having a big guy down there. But overall, I mean, the fact that Texas was able to kind of come back in that game, I think is a good sign for at least the want to and the willpower of this team. It's a tough place. They're on the road. They're playing, I think tip-off was at 9:30 Central Time.
Yeah.
I was unable to watch all of that game because I was dealing with the meltdown at the Kansas loss from a football message board. But, I think overall, I thought that their second half performance was probably a good sign for the future. There's obviously some work that needs to be done, but I don't think that people should be up in arms or anything over a loss to the number one team in the country, even if it was a 12-point loss.
Taylor Estes, a great follow on Twitter at Taylor Estes 24/7. And of course, that YouTube podcast that she does with Chip Brown, outstanding. Go to YouTube and search Horns 24/7 to watch that. She is all over all things Texas Longhorns athletics. Taylor Estes, great stuff as always. Hopefully we'll be talking about a Longhorn victory over West Virginia when we talk next week. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on, y'all.
Absolutely. Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. And programming note, typically in this half hour on Wednesdays, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, since he went late into the night, West Coast game last night against the Clippers, Bill is going to join us tomorrow. We're letting him sleep in this morning. Bill's going to join us tomorrow at 8:05 to talk Spurs, NBA, Longhorns, and everything that Bill rocks upon, as he always does with us here on the radio. Coming up, let's take a look at the NFL. We'll talk some more college football as well. Whole lot to cover in the final half hour. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, Brian Gann making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! 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 There it is. Ran out. That's what I'm looking for. Good morning, Julio Reyes. Yeah, Jason, you said you're performing a wedding in January in Dripping Springs. That's where I'm going this weekend. It's a wedding in Dripping Springs, Texas. What are the odds? Must be a hot spot for weddings. Dean is telling us the Titans are number 2 in power rankings. I did not know that. That's amazing that they're at number 2. Without Derrick Henry. I think I'm going to get a little more ice for the final segment. For my Purely, I guzzle so much of this stuff. They should be a sponsor. Pure Leaf iced tea, unsweetened, of course, because homie doesn't do sweet tea. There you go, Jason. We are both ordained by the Universal Life Church. Pretty amazing. They're pretty easy. Just be good to one another and use your powers for good. It is kind of a cool thing. That is doable and easy. And it is. I mean, as you know, Jason, when you perform these ceremonies, it's quite the honor. It's really kind of special and cool. So there's that. All right. I feel the need for ice for my iced tea. I'll be back. I got my ice. Sweet. Thank you, Mike Taylor. What else is going on? Shannon, we'll go through what we didn't get to from your prep, the final 3 items. Let's see. Woo! All right, what was that? Twitter's not letting me sign in. Come on. Oh, I know. Here we go. Here we go.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. Lots of ground to cover between now and 9 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. You can always jump in with us on the phone lines, 800-707-9760. And Shannon, I do want to mention a couple of interesting games last night from college basketball. There were a couple of upsets. Seton Hall upset number 4 Michigan, 67-65. So a top 5 team went down last night in men's college basketball. But kind of a jaw dropper was BYU versus Oregon. Oregon came in at number 12. It was the Phil Knight Invitational. So it was, kind of a marquee tournament for Oregon to shine. And BYU not only beats number 12 Oregon, but they beat them badly, 81-49. That is, I believe, a 33-point margin. And it is what's notable about it, Shannon, let me pull this up. It is the first time since 1993 that an unranked opponent beat a ranked opponent in men's college basketball by 30 or more. So, I mean, that was, 1993. 2021, that is hadn't happened in 28 years. An unranked opponent just beating down a ranked opponent by 30 plus.
As a Texas fan, I just say leave it to BYU to be the team that does it.
Yeah, that BYU program, you got to like that. It's, I think we might, looks like we're getting a phone call here. Ooh. Yeah. I think, is it Sterling? Sterling wants to talk Longhorns. We'll do that. Hey, Sterling, how you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, Chris. How you doing, Shannon? Long time.
Hey, Sterling.
Well, I just wanted to talk about what y'all been talking about the Longhorns the last few days. Like, I don't think anybody getting fired is going to help either. But I do want to, and maybe you can help me with this, Shannon, Chris. I do want to understand everybody's undying faith in the coach to get it turned around. You look at people's resume, and his 6 years at Washington, I think his best record was 9-4. So I know he was a Broyles Award winner, so was Coach Herman. So I just want to understand his undying faith that he can turn it around. I agree he needs time, but what I'm confused confused about is why is everybody so hell-bent on believing that he can't do it. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to say that. Anyway, I'll hang up and see what you guys have to say. Enjoy the show.
Well, thanks for the call, Sterling. Good to hear from you again. I mean, partly it's year one, right? And I've said it before, maybe not this year, but in the next year, if things are still going wrong in certain areas, he's going to need to take swift action, which is something that Tom Herman and Charlie Strong did not do with their assistants soon enough, and ultimately became the detriment to them. I think he's got the stamp of approval just because he is from that Nick Saban coaching tree, right? That they tend to go to the school of Nick Saban and turn around and come out and become pretty great coaches wherever they end up. So far he's said all the right things and pretty much done all the right things. It's just the product on the field isn't quite there yet. You'll still hear the sentiment, well, wait till he gets his guys, You'll probably start hearing, well, they're young guys when they come in next year. Give them time. It's a tough pill to swallow in any time, but given where we have been with this program, with as much change as this program has had, and for these specific players, having a constant culture as well with that, I think is going to go a long way, but it's just going to take time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and as Shannon Sterling gives you the glass half full as a USC Trojan alum, I can give you glass half empty, obviously. Steve Sarkisian was our head football coach, and we had high expectations. I was excited about him becoming the head football coach because of his offensive coordinator position on the Pete Carroll USC Trojans that were just phenomenal in the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart years. But as we know, things really went off the rails at USC. Personal problems for Steve Sarkisian involving substance abuse, and a moment where he was in front of students, addressing the students, where things went bad. We all know the rest. And so one of the reasons, Shannon, I want to see him succeed. I think a lot of people have issues in life. We all have issues on one level or the other. And certainly a lot of people have had substance issues and are in recovery and have turned their lives around and have flourished and triumphed. And I think on a certain level, Steve Sarkisian can be, and so far is, with all of his success at Alabama. And I believe he's going to be successful at Texas. But when a man or a woman has been to hell and back, and he has, and when they turn their life around, and when they stare, not only destroying their careers, but obviously alcohol abuse and substance abuse can destroy your life. When he stares, destroying his life into the eyes, and then finds a way, I think he becomes perhaps a symbol and maybe a mentor, and who knows how many people Steve Sarkisian might be either counseling directly or might be inspiring just by how he lives his life now. So I want to see him succeed. And I think you made the point, Shannon, and Taylor Estes made the point with us minutes ago. Texas needs to do something it hasn't done since Mac Brown, and that is let someone you trust do their thing. And as Taylor pointed out, see a class all the way from graduating high school to their senior year at Texas, and let's see how he does in that situation. And again, given his Washington experience and given his firsthand view and participation in the USC dynasty and in the Alabama dynasty, you got to believe this guy's well equipped to pull this off.
Well, listen, Texas fans have been hurt over and over again these last 10 plus years at this point. And you can either be the Grumposaurus, who is just always calling for heads to roll and, oh my, woe is me kind of situation, or you can put faith in Coach Sark, as Chris Del Conte clearly has, as well as the rest of the athletic administration, and say, you know what, I do see the changes. They may not be happening quickly enough for you, but changes are being made, and there is hope, right? I mean, Oklahoma, we were right there. OSU, we were at the, same thing. Once those changes really start to take place, I think everyone will kind of fall in line. But I'm going to stick on the side of believing in Sark and keeping, I guess, positive vibes rather than like being doom and gloom all of the time and just being like, well, who's next in line?
Yeah. And oh, by the way, the greatest coach ever born and ever to walk the face of this earth, Thomas Wade Landry, was 0-11-1 his first year with the Cowboys. I know completely different circumstances, but Landry did not have a winning season until 1966, and he came on board in 1960. And the owner of the Cowboys, Clint Murchison, like after about 64 or 65, they had not had a winning season yet, and Murchison signed Landry to an unprecedented 10-year contract. And so there were some Cowboys fans who went nuts and said, "Are you out of your mind signing this loser Tom Landry to a 10-year contract?" Well, the rest is history. You let a guy put his culture and his construct into the real world and let it play out and let him get the players he needs. And great things can happen. They certainly did there. Shannon, I do want to mention, and you pointed this out to me this morning, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, I have cited many times what a great story it is, his loyalty to the Milwaukee Bucks, his loyalty to Milwaukee, and I think it affects smaller market teams like the San Antonio Spurs in a good way. Things in Milwaukee might not be as beautiful as we see them on the surface.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, how they're not off to a fantastic start with the season. And I asked you the question of, Mike Budenholzer was kind of in a situation of being on the hot seat during that playoff run until they did turn around against the Nets and ultimately won the championship. So I said, given this start, could he find himself back in that similar conversation, even though he does now have this championship? And you kind of alluded to, well, at this point he seems tied with Giannis, right? Because they look what they did together. Giannis loves that city, and he's got a great relationship with Budenholzer. But now we get this press conference, and Giannis said, "Listen, when I signed the contract, like I love challenges. I like to be challenged, and the challenge was to bring a championship here to this city, a city that has taken care of me and my family, that we all love, and we love this community, and we will always support this community. But I met that challenge." And he said, and quote, "The next challenge might not be here."
Ooh.
And I don't know if that alludes to the immediate future or somewhere off in the distance. But it certainly raises a lot of eyebrows, especially as, the interesting thing about the Bucks was that they really weren't, like that triple threat kind of team that we see in an LA or a New York. And could he become a part of a super team and potentially the greatest super team of all time if you get a guy like Giannis on that roster?
Yeah, gonna have to keep an eye on that. And I mean, you look at LeBron. LeBron probably has more influence over other players, certainly younger players in the NBA, than we may know. So Giannis certainly looking what LeBron did for Cleveland and then moved on, and he might say, "Hey, that's one of the ways to do it." Speaking of NBA basketball, in a game last night, Shannon, we got a little bit more data on the Manning cast curse.
Yes.
We wanted to see if the curse would be in play last night, and we got a little more information last night.
Yeah, we're all about collecting data so we can speak the facts and speak the truth. Draymond Green appearing on the Manning cast on Monday night. He then had a game last night with the Warriors. Of course, Phil also on that Manning cast and said, "Listen, I don't have a tournament this weekend because I believe in the curse." Draymond clearly not believing in the curse, played for the Warriors last night in their 117-99 victory over the Nets. And because it is basketball, I kind of added the caveat of not only do the Warriors need to win, but you would need Draymond to have a typical game, right? Because obviously Steph Curry could go out there and Draymond could play horribly. To me, it looks like he fared okay. 11 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists in 29 minutes. He seemed to do okay. So for the time being, I think it stands that this is just a football-related curse.
Okay, we will continue to keep an eye on it. And I always caution people, a curse or a jinx is not absolute and 100%, but it is a trend. So we'll keep an eye on it. Finally, Shannon, we like to recommend new programming that is streaming out there. An icon. Do I call this an iconic show? Is the sequel is now out?
Tiger King 2 now out today. It was certainly a time to be alive when we were all quarantined back in March of 2020 and everyone in the world seemed to watch it and just kind of jaws dropped to the floor with what was going on. I don't have plans to watch this one. I'm interested to see what people say. So if anyone does watch it, let me know what's going on. If you recommend it, maybe I will consider it. But this is not the quality kind of programming that I am interested at this time.
Well, and I'm just curious how Carol Baskin's lawsuit works out.
Carol Baskins.
Yeah, she's not happy. She was not paid for this one, and she does. She's not happy. So we did have a poll question, Shannon, asking now that the college football poll is out, and oh, by the way, the top 7 did not change, but which of the teams on the outside looking in are most deserving of being among the top 4 and going to the playoff? What did we learn?
Still running away with things this morning. Number 5 is Cincinnati at 10-0 with 78% of the votes. Votes coming in now for Michigan as well, just 8%. They are number 6 at 9-1. Michigan State 9-1 as well, number 7. They've got 2%. And still people don't follow directions, Chris. 10% voting other and not telling us anything.
Tell us who you want. And of course, Shannon, I want UTSA. I want a 12 or a 16 team playoff. If you go undefeated in Division I college football, you should earn the opportunity to play for the championship. Come on.
There's still time. It can happen. Crazy ththings happen.
Yeah, like everybody could lose the rest of all of their games, and UTSA can be the only standing football team at 12-0, and then maybe the committee goes, you know what? And the committee drinks a lot of tequila and says, let's just put UTSA in there, see what happens. See, that could happen. It's humanly possible, Shannon. It's not a 0.00% chance. You're saying we got a chance.
Yeah, as a tequila drinker, I can tell you anything can happen.
Very nice.
After some tequila.
I know we're late, but what's your go-to tequila quickly?
Justin Timberlake is part of a tequila company called Sauza 901, and it's pretty
It's all
good.
about Timberlake with you. You and JT. All right. Our thanks to Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. Our thanks to the boss man, Brian Gann, for coming in here and making sure we're on the air, doing the heavy lifting today. Tomorrow on the show, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. We will talk. Andy Everett going to join us from UTSA football. Big show tomorrow. Have yourself a great Wednesday. We will reconvene in 21 hours. Thank you very much. Enjoy your Wednesday. Adios, amigos. Thanks, everybody. Louisa, thank you. Ralph, thank you. Yellow Jackets on Showtime, says Jason. I haven't done that yet. I've heard good things about it, though. So, all right. Well, Fitbit says I slept 2 hours and 52 minutes last night, so I am going to get a nap ASAP. Hey, Axel J. Miller. Jason Paniagua, thank you.
This report is sponsored by Orange Theory. November is November at Orange Theory Fitness. The best time to be new is now because
Fernando Solano. Have a good day, Fernando. You are also my favorite ABBA song. There was something in the air that night. The stars were bright, Fernando. Great song. How did they come up with that one? That was tremendous. All right. Axel J. Miller says, get some Z's. I will give you the last word on the screen there. That's what I'm going to do. No Spurs game tonight. I'm going to take a major nap. Thank God. It's like one of my favorite things now. It's like sleep. What's your hobby? Sleep. What do you covet the most? Sleep. I've become a big fan of sleep. All right, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a great day. Thanks for hanging out with us. We do appreciate your hanging out with us. It means a lot to us. We had a lot of fun this morning. Earlier in the show, we were joined by Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you, Christopher. We were joined by Tokyo, Taro Kotani, and all of you who are in here right now. We appreciate your being with us. Peggy Cash from Transworld Leasing. See y'all later. Have a good day.